He wakes up at 5:15 a.m. without an alarm. Not because someone told him to, because that's who he is. He trains 6 days a week, eats according to a protocol, tracks his macros, sleeps 7 hours, reads before bed. At work, he's reliable, precise, the kind of man who finishes what he starts. His superiors trust him, his peers respect him. His discipline is not performance, it is structure. It is the scaffolding of his entire identity. And on the 19th of the month, he opens his bank app and stares at a number that makes no sense. Not broke, but not building anything either. The same tightness, the same vague discomfort, the same sense that somewhere between January and now, money that should exist simply doesn't. He doesn't understand it, because the logic doesn't hold. If discipline produces results in the gym, and it does, he has the body to prove it, then why doesn't the same discipline produce results in his account? Here's the answer nobody is giving him. Because discipline and financial behavior don't share the same operating system. And what works brilliantly in one domain can actively work against you in the other. This is the paradox of the disciplined man, and it's exactly what this video is about. His name is Felipe. He's 36. Military officer, sergeant level rank, 9 years in. Physical conditioning is part of his job description. He trains with the kind of commitment that other men post quotes about. He's also the man who, every year at the end of January, tells himself this is the year he'll finally start investing. He's been saying it for 4 years. Felipe isn't careless. He's structured in every measurable area of his life. He plans his week on Sunday. He preps meals. He doesn't touch alcohol during the week. He has a morning routine that would make productivity content creators weep with joy. And his savings account has $400 in it. I want to sit with that for a second, not to judge Felipe, but to ask the question that actually matters. What is the structural difference between the domain where Felipe thrives and the domain where he doesn't? Because the answer is not discipline. He has discipline. The answer is something more fundamental, more architectural, and it explains one of the most persistent and least discussed paradoxes in behavioral finance. Psychologist Roy Baumeister's research on ego depletion, later expanded and debated by colleagues across the field, introduced an uncomfortable idea. Willpower functions like a muscle. It can be developed, yes, but it can also be exhausted. And when it is exhausted, when you've spent your capacity for self-regulation on the things your structure demands, the resistance to impulse in other domains drops sharply. Felipe depletes his willpower reservoir every single day, not wastefully, productively. The 5:15 a.m. alarm, the training, the dietary discipline, the professional exactitude. These are all acts of self-regulation that draw from the same cognitive budget. By the time Felipe finishes his workday and faces a financial decision, the delivery app, the electronic promotion, the weekend invitation that costs more than it should, his prefrontal cortex is running on reserve. He doesn't make bad financial decisions because he lacks discipline. He makes them because he has already spent his discipline on everything else. And here's what nobody tells him. The thing I had to learn in a way that was genuinely uncomfortable. The most disciplined version of you is not immune to financial unconsciousness. In fact, the confidence your discipline generates in other domains can make you less vigilant in the one domain you haven't yet systematized. You trust yourself. You've earned that trust. You've proven repeatedly that when you commit to something, you follow through. And that trust, that completely legitimate track record, can become a blind spot. I'll deal with the financial stuff when I have more time. I'm disciplined. When I decide to do it, I will. But the decision never quite arrives. Because the system that produces decisions about training, about protocol, about work, that system has no equivalent structure applied to money. And money, in the absence of structure, defaults to consumption. I want to name the core of this pattern. I'm calling it the discipline transfer fallacy. It works like this. You have genuine, demonstrated discipline in at least one high-stakes domain of your life. Physical training, professional performance, academic achievement. This discipline produces visible, measurable results. Your body, your career, your credentials. These results confirm correctly that you are a capable and self-directed man. The discipline transfer fallacy is the unconscious assumption that this capability automatically applies to domains you haven't systematized. You believe, without examining it, that your discipline will show up for money the same way it shows up for the gym. When you decide to focus on it, it will work. Your track record says so. But discipline doesn't transfer between domains automatically. It has to be architected. The gym works because you built a system, a time, a place, a protocol, a metric. You don't decide every morning whether to train. The decision was made once, structurally, and the system executes it. There is no equivalent system for your money. There's just intention. And intention without structure is a wish. The most successful investors in the world are not more disciplined than you. They are more systematized. Automatic transfers, scheduled allocation, predetermined rules for every financial scenario. They removed the need for daily discipline entirely because they understood something fundamental. Willpower is a terrible financial tool. Structure is the only reliable one. Let's go deeper into the layers of why this paradox persists, specifically in men shaped by hierarchical, performance-based institutions. Layer 1, the reward architecture mismatch. In training, the feedback loop is relatively fast. You lift the weight, you feel it, you track the progress. Within weeks, visible change. The discipline is reinforced by evidence that appears in a time frame. Your brain can connect causally to the effort. Financial discipline has a radically different feedback loop. You save $500 this month. Nothing visible changes. Your account has $500 more than it would. But that $500 doesn't look different. It doesn't feel different. There's no pump, no progress photo, no visible marker of achievement. The brain receives almost no reinforcing signal. Behavioral economists call this temporal discounting, the tendency to value immediate, tangible feedback over delayed, abstract reward. The gym produces immediate feedback at a cellular, neurological level. Investing produces feedback in years, in percentages, in compounding curves that don't become emotionally real until they're large enough to change your circumstances. This is not a character flaw. It is a neurological reality. Your brain was built to respond to visible, near-term results. Asking it to maintain motivation for a reward that is decades away, expressed in numbers on a screen, is asking it to operate outside its design parameters. The question for Felipe is not, why don't I have more discipline with money? The question is, how do I architect a financial system that doesn't require daily discipline, because I already know daily discipline is finite? Question: if your financial progress were as visible as your physical progress, if you could see your net worth changing in real time the same way you see your body changing, do you think your behavior would be different? Layer 2, the masculine performance economy. Men shaped by high-performance institutions, military, competitive sports, public service, operate inside a specific cultural economy of masculinity. In these environments, strength is displayed, not discussed. Weakness is private. The performance of competence is constant and largely non-negotiable. Money is one of the few domains where this performance economy becomes actively destructive. Because in the masculine performance framework, not having money is experienced not as a problem to solve, but as a failure to admit. So it becomes invisible. You don't talk about the tight 22nd with your colleagues. You don't discuss the lack of investment with your peers in the locker room. The performance continues. And here's the cost. Financial problems that are hidden cannot be addressed systematically. They exist only as private anxiety, the bank app at 11 p.m., the vague calculation in the back of the mind during conversations about future plans. Without visibility, without language, without a framework for discussing it honestly, the pattern continues indefinitely. Morgan Housel writes in The Psychology of Money that financial success has less to do with intelligence and more to do with behavior. And behavior is shaped primarily by what a person believes is normal and acceptable within their reference group. If your reference group never talks about money honestly, if the only financial signals you receive are social performances of adequacy, you have no model for the behavior that actually builds wealth. The performance economy of masculinity keeps financial reality invisible, and invisibility is the most expensive condition your money can be in. Question: how many conversations have you had in the last year about money? Not about salaries or expenses, but about the actual architecture of what you're building and whether it's working. Layer 3, the systematic neglect of asymmetric domains. Men who excel in high-discipline environments tend to develop what we might call domain hierarchy, an implicit ranking of which areas of life deserve structured attention. Physical performance, professional execution, relational obligations, these receive systematic attention. Financial architecture, long-term wealth strategy, money psychology, these exist in the gap, always one rung below whatever currently demands the most focused energy. This is partly structural. The institutions that produced Felipe's discipline gave him detailed frameworks for physical and professional performance, and essentially zero framework for personal finance. The military tells you how to maintain your body. It does not tell you how to structure your capital. The result is a man of extraordinary institutional formation, operating with default civilian psychology when it comes to money, which is to say, largely reactive, largely unconscious, largely driven by whatever the culture around him normalizes. Systematic neglect doesn't feel like neglect. It feels like, I'll get to that. Like, that's next. Like, I'm dealing with more important things right now. But every year, the financial domain stays in the gap, is another year of compounding that doesn't happen. Another year where the asset that has the most potential to produce freedom, invested capital, sits inert, while everything else receives disciplined attention. The institutional man's greatest financial liability is not recklessness. It's strategic silence about the one domain that could free him from the institution. Question: if you applied the same level of systematic planning to your finances that you apply to your physical training, actual periodization, actual measurement, actual progression protocol, what would change in 12 months? Layer 4, the compensation mechanism. Here's the layer that's the hardest to hear. Men who maintain high discipline regimes in demanding domains often develop unconscious compensation mechanisms, pockets of deliberate release where the controlled self is allowed to decompress. These pockets are necessary. The human psychology cannot sustain total self-regulation without relief valves. And in a culture that doesn't provide healthy, articulated forms of emotional decompression for men, the relief valves tend to be financial. The Saturday restaurant. The gear purchase that was technically unnecessary, but was purchased after a particularly brutal week. The upgrade that happened at the end of a long deployment or an intense professional cycle. These are not random. They are the controlled self giving the uncontrolled self brief, expensive permission. You've earned this. You've been tight all week. You've been disciplined, precise, correct. Now, just for a moment, you don't have to be. The expenditure isn't about the item, it's about the decompression. And the discipline itself, the very thing that makes Felipe admirable, is the engine that makes the decompression financially expensive. The tighter the discipline, the greater the pressure. The greater the pressure, the more expensive the release. This is not a cycle that breaks with more discipline. It breaks with something rarer, a designed life that reduces the need for compensatory spending by giving the self permission to rest in ways that don't cost money. But here's the moment where most men reach for the wrong tool again. They double down on control. They make a stricter budget. They tell themselves this time will be different. Same willpower, same structure, this time applied to finance. It fails for the same reason it has failed before, because the problem was never discipline. The problem was the system. Before I take you to the shift, I want to tell you about something we built for exactly this moment. The Free Your Mind Kit. 3 components, designed in sequence. First, the Ebook, The 5 Patterns That Keep You Stuck. 35 pages of psychological financial diagnosis. This is the intellectual layer. It maps the exact mental architectures that produce the discipline transfer fallacy, the compensation mechanism, the future self-discount. Men like Felipe read it and say, I thought this was my fault. It wasn't my fault. It was my architecture. And architecture can be changed. Second, the cost of stability calculator, an interactive tool that runs your actual numbers, your age, your income, your current savings rate, your trajectory. It shows you, not theoretically, but with your specific numbers, what the gap between where you are and where you could be actually costs in years, in freedom, in the version of your life that doesn't get built while the structure runs on default. Third, the Free Your Mind series. 3 audio tracks, 21 days, 7 to 12 minutes each. Designed to be listened to when you wake up or before you sleep. The 3 tracks work on identity first, then value, then action. In that order, because that's the only sequence that holds. You can understand the compensation mechanism completely and still spend on Saturday. The identity level work is what changes the behavior permanently. This is not a course. There's no monthly fee, no subscription, lifetime access. The ebook creates intellectual clarity. The calculator creates emotional reality. The audios do the reconstruction. The link is in the description, when you're ready. Now, I need to go to the place that actually hurts. Because I know what some of you are thinking. This isn't me. I have my spending under control. Or, the system I operate in gives me stability. I'd be stupid to compromise. Or, the most seductive one. When I'm promoted, when the quinquenio hits, when the next raise comes, then I'll start. And I want to tell you something about that logic that nobody who loves you has been willing to say directly. The future version of you, the promoted you, the quinquenio you, the post-raise you, has the same brain you have right now. He has the same compensation mechanism, the same reward architecture mismatch, the same masculine performance economy, the same systematic neglect of the financial domain, the same tendency to release pressure through spending after sustained discipline. He's just operating at a higher income level, which means the amounts are larger and the pattern is more expensive. More money, without a different system, does not produce different results. It produces the same results at a higher resolution. The men who wait for more income to fix a behavioral architecture problem are the men who earn $4,000 and save nothing, then earn $8,000 and save nothing, then retire on a pension that covers their fixed costs and spend the last decade of their working life wondering why the life they planned feels smaller than the one they imagined. The pension arrives, the choices don't. Here's what the discipline transfer fallacy ultimately costs, beyond the compounding mathematics. It costs you the specific freedom that disciplined men most deserve, because you've paid an enormous price for your structure. You've given years, physical output, professional precision, early mornings, dietary restriction. You've built a life that demands a great deal of you. The thing that should compensate for that cost, not a salary, but actual capital, actual freedom, the ability to say no to systems that no longer serve you, that thing requires the one domain you haven't yet systematized. You've disciplined everything that earns the money. You haven't yet disciplined the money itself. And every Sunday that passes without that architecture in place is a Sunday that doesn't return. I want to tell you about Felipe 6 months after the morning I described. He didn't transform overnight. That's not the story. The story is smaller and more real. He started with one structural change, not one motivational decision. He set up an automatic transfer for the same day his salary hit his account. $300, directly to an investment account he didn't have a card for and couldn't access in the app he used daily. Not because $300 will build a dynasty, because removing the decision from the daily discipline budget was the real move. He didn't have to choose every month whether to save. The system chose. He just lived on what remained. In the first month, it was uncomfortable. The 22nd was tighter. By the third month, he had adjusted. His spending compressed. Not through conscious restriction, but because the available money was different, and the brain adapts to constraints. By the 6th month, he had increased the transfer to $600 without experiencing the adjustment as painful, because his lifestyle had recalibrated to the new floor. He didn't use willpower, he used architecture. That's the whole lesson. And it's available to anyone who's willing to stop trying to outrun their own psychology and start designing around it instead. Here's where I leave you. Not with a plan, with a question that's actually a mirror. Think about the most systematized domain of your life, the one where your discipline is undeniable and the results are visible. Now ask, what specific system makes that discipline automatic? Not the willpower, the system, the scheduled time, the protocol, the measurement, the non-negotiable structure. Now ask, does the financial domain have an equivalent? Not an intention, not a resolution. A system that runs whether you have willpower that day or not. If the answer is no, you already know the next step. Go to the comments. Write one word, the first word that comes to mind when you hear financial system. Not what you wish the answer were, what it actually is right now. Because the men who answer that, honestly, are the ones who are about to change it. And this community, the Mind of Value community, is built for men who are done performing and ready to build. Subscribe if that's the conversation you want, because discipline without architecture is just expensive willpower, and you've been paying that price long enough.